Welcome into Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, the 5th episode of the podcast. Dom Chirco alongside me. I am your host, yours truly, Vito Jerome Chirco, today on the 5th episode. And we're talking a bunch about the Tigers and some American League MVP discussion later on in today's podcast. And we are hosted by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network and by DetroitSportsNation.com. Thank you to those guys. And John Macaroon, always here as well for today's podcast, the 5th edition once again. Dom, let's get right into it. And last night's disaster of a game against the Cincinnati Reds. Horrible 6th inning. Buck Farmer was absolutely terrific. Best start of his career, right? Through 5. No-hitter through 5.
No-hitter,
but then after that, everything fell apart, and the team bottomed out and let up 10 runs in the 6th inning. It was an epic collapse, Dom, wasn't it?
Very bad. Tigers struggled with pitching, and then the hitting always seemed like it could get together. They've been inconsistent throughout the year, and yesterday was the prototype of the Tigers season.
It really marked the theme. It went along with the theme of the Tigers season, the inconsistencies, inefficiencies of the pen, the starting pitching, the staff, pitching staff as a whole, right? And then inconsistencies as an offensive unit. The lineup, from top to bottom, can score a ton of runs like you said, right? One game against the Cubs, they killed it. They love Wrigleyville. But then in Cincy last night, they scored the runs, but then can't score after that. Then they had this past weekend against the Rangers where they could have won 2 games, at least split the series, or won 3 out of 4. They couldn't do that because they couldn't muster up enough offense, right? Offensive support for the good starting pitching that we got for the majority of the weekend in that 4-game series against the Rangers. And that's the Tigers not coming up with those timely hits. And for how long have the Tigers really fallen victim to that? Maybe not in the regular season in recent memory, besides for this year, but in the postseason, last year, the year before, all these postseasons, if you really combine them all, Dom, and talk about them as one cohesive thing, you could say it comes down to the lack of timely hitting from guys like even Miguel Cabrera, who's the best slugger, I think, in the game still at his age, Dom.
Last year, he was a little better last year in the postseason, but you can make that case for the World Series against the Giants. Postseason in 2013 wasn't as good. He struggled a little bit, but I think as a whole, the team offensively was a little bit better last year going into the postseason. They scored runs against the Orioles. It was always their bullpen, their pitching that didn't muster up any quality starts in the postseason there in the ALDS against the Orioles. But the hitting last year was relatively, I would say, the bright spot in that playoff series.
They gave up leads left and right. We saw that all postseason long. And Brad Ausmus inserting guys like Jabba Chamberlain when he had Story, a right to use. When he had Albuquerque, he was a lot more efficient down the stretch than Jabba Chamberlain was. And he fell in love with Jabba. And even this year before, he was designated for assignment. I mean, if he wasn't DFA'd, he'd still be using him in the 8th inning, it seems like. That's how much Brad Ausmus has loved and how much affection he has for Jabba Chamberlain, who just stunk it up right in the minors. Where's he at now? With somebody else in the minors, and he just stunk it up in AAA in his last outing or one of his last outings. So
Blue Jays, yeah.
Blue Jays, right? I mean, he's washed up, but Ausmus kept using him. I don't think Ausmus will be here at the end of the season, too.
Yeah,
I think
fellas, I just wanted to break in. I think I heard that he didn't make it with Toronto, and I think he signed a minor league deal with Kansas City. I'm gonna check that for you guys.
Now, check that out. Yeah, because Jabba, I think Dominic at this point is a career minor leaguer. He's on the verge of becoming that, and a guy that will be called up here and there, be used on the 40-man, but won't be that sufficient 8th inning guy from here on out. What do you think? I mean, he's damaged goods, right, for the most part.
Yeah, he doesn't have his fastball straight, doesn't use a good job of the repertoire, and I think Kansas City just picked him up.
Yeah, and they did. John Macaroon verified that for us. Look at John coming through in the clutch here, right? Just like Miguel Cabrera can at times. And down, Buck Farmer was coming through in the clutch last night. Let's talk about him now a little bit more. Through 5 and no-hitter, his best start of his career. And then the 6th inning came, and he became Buck Farmer that we have known all season long, right, and grown accustomed to. With that being said, him going through 5 in a strong fashion, can he be a bullpen arm, an efficient not late inning, but middle inning and long relief bullpen arm? I think he can be, because I think he can give you 2 or 3 out of the pen and be quite efficient. What do you think, Dom?
Absolutely. He's been good in small doses for the Tigers this year. He's not a guy that is overpowering. He pitches the contact mostly. His notoriety as a sinker baller is foreseen when he pitches. I think he's a better option than a lot of guys that they have in that middle relief spot, just for the sake of opposing hitters have high contact percentages against him, but he's able to, get the ground ball usually. Second time, third time through the order, hitters have had much more success hitting over 330 against him, second and third time through the order. That's usually the
sign of a guy that can't really start every 5th day, right?
Telltale sign of he's not a starter.
And now, did he have his best stuff of the season, of his Major League Baseball career, Dom, last night? Can that be said? Through 5.
He mixed in his secondary pitches, his slider, his changeup, and his sinker a lot, using that, throwing it down and into the righties, getting them to roll over, getting them to chase pitches. But as you saw what happened, Suarez hit the home run. Seems like after that, everything hit the fan.
Does Farmer get another start this year?
I would say that if it's a spot start, yeah, I'll say he gets the lead. I'll say he starts.
Now, Suarez, let's talk about him. You brought him up. Segueing into this now topic. Was that the worst trade from Dave Dombrowski, the former GM and team president, in recent memory, in the last year, let's say, when they got Simon for him? What do you think about that, Dom?
I think it was not a fair trade. I think Simons is what he is. He's a reliever converted to a starter.
Is he a 5th starter, Dom? Maybe, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But where you get him, and he can't really give you innings. He's not really an innings eater. He throws a lot of pitches in his starts, walks guys. His whip's a sign of that. But he's Suarez is a guy they could have had stockpile him, maybe platoon him, get him used to just work on his defense, get him used to playing on the field more. His defense's range wasn't the best, and that's why the Tigers didn't think too highly of him. They could sacrifice offense for pitching, so that's why the trade was justifiable at the time for Simon. But I think we're seeing Simon. He's a free agent. They're not gonna
no chance.
Re-sign him.
He went 9 recently. Now that was one start, small sample size, but he was good and pretty
one
efficient
hitter, complete game,
through the
one
first
hitter.
month and a half. To remember of this season. Would you bring him back on the cheap, because he'll be a bargain, a guy that you can get very low for the minimum? I mean, which isn't really set at something, but I'm saying right now, if you get him for like $1 million, $2 million for 1 year, 2 years, that might be worth it, because then you can use him in the bullpen as well. If he really fails in the starting rotation next year, move him right back to the pen, right?
Right, you can take a flyer on him late, spring training, get him signed.
If nobody else has him signed by
has him
that
signed
time.
by then, you might get a little more than what the Tigers are willing to offer him going into next year.
How much can he get down, do you think, on the open market?
He can probably get around $10 million.
In what, though? Not total per year.
No.
What are you saying, like 2 years, 10? Like $5 million per year,
$10 million,
right?
$5 million per year.
Okay. I would say $5 million tops then, right, Dom?
A National League team I could see that happening, more specifically.
Is it easier to pitch in the NL, you think, Dom, than in the American League because of that DH in the American League?
Yeah, it depends on the park factors. A certain park, I think Colorado's always a park where pitchers are leery of going there because breaking balls usually stay up. They have the humidor there, high altitude, ball flies out of that ballpark. I think that's a team. I think a lot of other park factors can be, Petco Park, spacious park, pitchers park. A team like that could sign Simon next year. I could see that, especially if they deal one of their top starters next year, Cashner, Ross.
He's veteran insurance,
Kennedy,
right?
In the winter trade meetings, if AJ Preller dials something up, I could see Simon signing there.
He might dial it up, huh? And one of those guys might be moved. It sounds like one of those guys were almost moved at the deadline, did not happen. So maybe Simon goes there to pitch as a 5th starter for an NL club like the Padres in 2016. Now moving on to a guy that's not a 5th starter right now for the Tigers and really shouldn't be based on his contract, and that's Justin Verlander, Dom. How good has he been in recent memory? And has he reclaimed his role sufficiently as the ace of the Tigers pitching staff? I believe so. What's your take?
Yeah, the Tigers pitching staff, absolutely. He's at a 1 WAR right now.
Which is good for him compared to what he was when he first started this year, right? Coming off of the DL. And even last year, he was miserable, Dom, wasn't he? He's not miserable right now.
Yeah, his fielding independent pitching is still high at this point for him to be an ace, but better than what it's been past 2 years. You look at his peripherals and you see a lot of good stuff. His splits are good. Other than his ERA is still slightly below average right now. His Fangraphs score, like I said, is 1, which is pretty good for him. He's getting a lot of pitches. His velocities remained the same as it was last year, but his slider and his curveball, his changeup, they're being used more effectively.
Are you confident, Dom, right now in saying that he'll be the ace of the Tigers pitching staff in 2016? And with that being said, the Tigers can be legit contenders in the American League Central with JV as the ace.
I think you can say he can be the ace of that staff. I'm not confident he can be just lead the team. I don't think they're AL Central favorites next year, early favorites.
Because of that, because they need to add some guys, right? They add the necessary arms for the pen and the starting rotation. This team, as we've talked about numerous times now on this podcast, can be a contender in the American League Central and legit contenders for the American League Central Division title, as they have been in recent memory up until this point this season. but JV really is a strong ace because of the Tigers' lack of depth right now, but really is more of a number 2, right? A strong number 2, I would say, going into next year. If you add an ace to complement what JV can do as a number 2, because he can still give you innings. That's the one good thing about JV. Even though he's been struggling or was struggling at one point this year, he was still giving you innings. Is still willing to go out there every 5th day and throw 100 to 100 plus pitches a start. So with that being said, he has a strong number 2. It's just I'm concerned, as you are, I think, for Tigers fans, that he's not going to be a strong ace, a bona fide ace next year or going forward. And it's still kind of a small sample size, but I think it's more than that for this season. But now you have to see what he does, I think, down the stretch, even more to be able to validate his status as the ace, the bona fide ace of the Tigers staff. Because right now, for me, he's just the ace because of the lack of depth, Dom. And I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah, I think it's a lack of depth. I think the first step for the Tigers, they have to determine what they have. Great offenses, they've had great starting pitching, but their defense and bullpens have been terrible. As good as Verlander's been recently, it's the swoon that he had, the coming back from injury. He has the core surgery. He's not been the same sharp guy, but now it seems like he's getting back on track as far as that goes. But I think in hindsight, he can be an ace. The Tigers almost have to have him be an ace.
He has to be the ace to sum it up. And with that being said, let's take a quick commercial break. And when we get back on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, we'll talk with Johnny Keith, my guest today on Tigers Talk, about the Detroit Water Ice Factory and his playing days alongside Delino Deshields Jr. and the young phenom of the Nationals, the NL MVP favorite, I believe, in Bryce Harper. We'll be right back.
Doc here for FanaticU.com, Detroit's official outfitter and the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Go visit FanaticU.com for great Lions gear, Tigers gear, Pistons, Wings, and if you're a college football fan, Vito, the football season is right around the corner. They're rolling out great new gear, jerseys, hats. Recently, they sold a ton of Old English D hats with the Block M. I just found out they're on order. The Old English D hat with the Michigan State logo is coming soon. You can go check out and find out when it comes out at FanaticU.com. And if you shop online, you can save 15% off everything that you buy, even clearance items, if you use the promo code DSP. We've partnered with Fanatic U, and they're a great outfitter of Detroit sports. And if you shop online at FanaticU.com, save 15% off of everything. Anything at all that you want, use promo code DSP. Go to FanaticU.com, Detroit Sports official outfitter. And now back to Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company.
And now with us on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company is Johnny Keith, a De La Salle alum, a graduate of the high school in the same year that I was, 2011. Johnny Keith, what's going on today?
What's going on with you, Vito? How you been, man?
I've been very good, very good. And I know you're doing very well at the Detroit Water Ice Factory. Johnny, talk about that now and what your role is exactly with the Detroit Water Ice Factory.
The Detroit Water Ice Factory is a company that's on 1014 Woodward Avenue. It's actually funded entirely by Mitch Albom, and all the profits from the store go towards Say Detroit. That's a larger charitable organization that umbrella everything from women and children's clinics to Haitian orphanages to even veterans, helps everyone. So basically, after our expenses, which are minimal, we donate all of our money towards those organizations, and it's sort of like a Newman's own, like Paul Newman, the salad dressing guy. It's like his model. So create a business to help fund charities. So my role in that is actually general manager, but I've been involved since the very, very beginning. I flew to New Jersey to train with a family. Water ice itself is a delicious product that originates in the East Coast, mainly Philly and New Jersey. They have variations of it all around the world. There's Kona ice in Hawaii, and then there's also an Indian version of it. But it's a fantastic product. It's actually just shaved flavored ice. It has no dairy, no cholesterol, no fat. I don't know. I'm winded trying to talk about the product. It's just delicious. You got to come in and you got to try it.
Yeah, everybody has to try it out. Detroit Water Ice Factory on One Campus Martius on Woodward Avenue in Detroit. So got to go check it out, Johnny. And talk about where your Uncle Mitch Albom got this idea for this Detroit Water Ice Factory. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Mitch actually grew up. He is from Passaic, New Jersey, and he grew up with his closest friend, Mark Rosenthal, and also another guy he's involved with us. His name's Perry Gold. He's our project manager. They all grew up eating water ice, and they love it. There used to be only 2 flavors, actually, originally. There was lemon and cherry, and now it has evolved into a much more in-depth process. So we have chocolate peanut butter. We have black cherry Bordeaux that have black cherry. So Mitch grew up with it. He saw it evolve. He loved the actual product itself. He noticed when he moved here to Michigan and began writing for the Free Press many years ago that there was never actually a water ice place here. So he decided, hey, that's something new. And in this world where, you know, everything is, you have to compete with everyone. You have to compete with the Ben & Jerry's. You have to do something new. So he figured, why not take this childhood sweet that he loved and try to create, you know, like I said, that business that helps fund those charities. So it's a great idea. I mean, really, in truest form, it's a great idea. So
Now, Johnny, really quick, what exactly is water ice, and how is it different than ice cream?
Ice cream essentially, it's actually, you know, it's funny that they're different, and they are made, hard ice cream is made in the same exact machine. So water ice is made, and there's only 2 machines in the entire world that actually make water ice, and it's flavored before it goes in the machine. Most Italian ices that people are familiar with, they are shaved or hand cranked by a machine. They're shaved with this blade, and then they add the flavoring later on. But what I use is real fruit bases. I use flavorings. I add a little bit of sugar, so it's not too sweet. And it's actually shaved inside of the machine. And it's shaved at such a rate, and it freezes at such a rate that creates a very unique consistency. It's very smooth, and it's very creamy. It's not how you would anticipate ice tasting. It's hard to describe. It truly is. It's something that, like months before I came here and had the original product myself, I was trying to describe to friends, and it was too difficult. They had never had it before. They had never had this machine prep it for them. So, there's only one machine that really makes it. And it's beautiful. I mean, you got to come and try it. And also, another thing we do at our store, to let you guys know, we have branded the Motown twist. On the East Coast, they call this dessert gelati. It's where you layer like a parfait. You put soft serve ice cream in the bottom of a cup. Then you put any flavor water ice on top. For example, you put mango on top of vanilla soft serve. And then you actually put one more layer on top, just a little topping of vanilla soft serve, and that's called the Motown twist. It's outstanding. People really love it. We've had great reviews. Our Yelp reviews are wonderful. Our Google reviews are wonderful. Our actual webpage has received a lot of positive feedback. I think people really enjoy the product, and they really enjoy what we're doing. So
Everything sounds really good, Johnny, and very unique, and my brother is loving it. Every single thing that you mentioned, he's shaking his head in favor, too. I think he wants to go and try it out right away. And I think we might even do it this week, next week, sometime soon to check it out, too,
yeah,
Johnny.
You guys definitely got to swing by. I would love to see both of you there. If you guys, if you come in, I'll show you the machine in the back that I'm talking about, and maybe you guys could upload something to your page. There's something really cool where when the product spills out of the mouth of the machine, it's really worth seeing. So maybe you guys can upload a little, something to your blog or your podcast or something where you guys can show people what we're talking about. People on the East Coast, if you have any East Coast listeners, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyone here, it's kind of a new thing. So
Now, Johnny, any future locations for the Water Ice Factory that you know of right now?
Definitely. I mean, the goal is always expansion, because more locations means more money. More money means more money to the charities themselves. So I know that we're discussing other locations at the moment. We're really focusing on this one, though. We're actually looking at doing some events, too, as well. We started off with small, just little 8 to 10, gallon office parties, and we had one 10-gallon party last week that we received a lot of positive feedback on, and we're hoping that the catering side of our business, our mobile business, too, expands, because nowadays it doesn't seem enough to just have a permanent establishment. You actually need to be able to take your product to the people. That's what we're focusing on next.
So this is what you're doing now, but what you used to do back in the day in high school is play baseball at De La Salle High School in Warren, Michigan, and you played travel ball, and you were very good, very talented, and had the chance to play alongside Delino Deshields Jr., who was in town this past weekend for the Rangers in that 4-game series that the Tigers didn't show up for. But you showed up to see him, to greet him, and you hung out for a little bit with Delino. Talk about that experience and how he is as a human being and as a player on the baseball field.
That was a great experience. It was funny because I was finishing up work here at the Water Ice Factory, and I work here easily, probably 100 hours a week. It's just how I am. I like to pour my heart, pour my soul into something, whatever project I'm involved with. I really like to take it seriously. So that means a huge time investment. And, I called Delino, and he works, a totally different way. It's like I was thinking as I was driving over to him, I'm like, this guy gets to wake up each morning, strap the cleats on, put his glove on, go out to the field, play a little catch, hit a little baseball, and that's his day. That's work to him. I love it. Like, it's him and I now are from totally different worlds, you know, and it's kind of good to like reunite with him after so many years. I know we've stayed in touch, but I haven't seen him. So to notice, you know, to go into the lobby and see him interacting with people on the Rangers, I haven't watched baseball in so long, like, I just don't have time. So it was embarrassing because there was major league guys who were walking past me who I didn't even know their names anymore. I just haven't been really that in tune with the sport. It would have been your dream, Vito. You would have
I know.
it.
It sounds like it. Right up my alley, man. I wish I was there.
You would have been like in heaven. I know you. You love, you know, like you love talking ball, and you know more about this game than I'm sure these guys do themselves when they play it. So yeah, but actually sitting down with him and talking to him, Delino's a great person. His dad, who was also, he was traded through Pedro Martinez in the first round. Delino Deshields Sr. went to the Montreal Expos. I can't remember the exact trade, but his nickname was Bop, B-O-P. We called Delino's dad Bop. He was a wonderful guy. When I had issues with my father passed away, they took me under their wing. They basically housed me in their home in Georgia. I played with them on a team called the Georgia Seminoles. So we had a long, long history, him and I. We played together for at least 2 to 3 years and then against each other for 2 to 3 years. And he's just an outstanding character. And, you know, I hope that is the new class of athletes. I really do. I hope, like, you know, we see less and less of the bad news about athletes and more good things, because I know he's involved in some charities and he has that spirit too. And I hope that's the new norm among, you know, professional athletes, is that they're not in the news for beating their wives and having dozens of kids. They're more in the news for, you know, who they help that day. It's refreshing to see somebody like that. Delino is also an outstanding player. I don't know if you know this, Vito, or if your fans know this at all, but he stole like over 100 bases his first year in the minor league, which was a pretty impressive stat. So
I would say that is, Johnny. There's no doubt about that. If you steal 100 bases, I would like to steal just 1 or 2 in the major leagues. So I would take that myself.
He's a quick kid. I mean, he was by far the fastest player I've ever played with, the most versatile, talented, strongest. You know, and I told you that I had played with Bryce a few times before too. He's outstanding as well, and each of them have their own skills and their own abilities. But yeah, Delino was just very quick, very powerful. You know, he was just he was a quick learner too. You know, he was a quick adjuster rather. Like, he could adjust his swing in the middle of a game. You know, a day where you're going 0 for 2. It's hard to get up to the plate and have that third at bat. When you know your first 2 at bats, you just weren't feeling it. You couldn't see the ball right. You're having a difficult time picking up spin rotation, anything like that. And then get in the box. He could do this, adjust in the middle of the game and make it work. So that's what he's valuable for. And I do see him being one of the best players to come out of our class in a long, long time. He'll be outstanding, truly.
Now, as you said, you played with Bryce Harper, too. He's not always the most classy guy or referred to as the most classy guy. So is it true that he's cocky and egotistical, like the word is out there about him? Because a lot of pundits say that he can be brash and overly aggressive in a bad manner, too.
I have a great story about Bryce, and it kind of sums up why that behavior is never justified, being cocky like that. But I do believe that if you can walk the walk, then, okay, you can talk the talk, too. So I was in Las Vegas with him. We were 14 or 15 years old, I can't recall. And he came to this tournament. It was like a World Series qualifier, I believe, for a 16-year-old division, and we were a year or 2 younger than the teams who were in it. And I flew to the airport, and this team was essentially a mix-up of a bunch of guys, a lot of which who are in the major leagues or in the minor leagues. So I know was there. Ronaldo Jenkins, the player who went to the Brewers organization early on, he was there. There was, I would say on the team, there was at least 10 to 12 future minor and major leaguers, and Bryce was among them. He was hitting like third, right, in our lineup, of course. And at this tournament, actually his first at-bat, I noticed him on the on-deck circle warming up with a wooden bat, and I'm like, what's this guy doing? You know, does he not realize this is a metal bat, like 16U World Series qualifier? And so he actually intentionally walks up to the plate with a wooden bat. He's made that decision because he's that good. And his first at-bat, he hits a 420-foot right field home run, pulls the ball.
Not too
and
shabby.
I'm like, wow, that was the most impressive thing. And also the ball was at his feet. I mean, it's like he dug it out of the dirt. It was very, very impressive. So he did that. And then on the actual tournament, and there's other players, I don't know if anyone here is listening wants to confirm, there's other players. Delino and I confirmed it the other night because we were talking about the tournament. He went 14 for 14 with 9 home runs. That was his batting average, and that was actually very close to when he decided he was going to go to a JUCO. Within a year or two, he decided he was going to go to the JUCO, and then he got drafted first round. And I just always said, he is a little bit, he's got that swagger, he's got that baseball mentality, but he can hit 9 home runs in a tournament and go 14 for 14. So, I mean, at least he's not doing, there's something admirable about somebody who can do things that you can't do. It's not something to be envious of. It's something to look back and go, wow, like that guy can hit the ball that well, he can run that fast, or that person can, they have this talent I don't have. So, I don't know, to look at them with anything other than admiration, I believe is envy. So. And
then, Johnny, he's easily right now becoming the best player in the major leagues at his young age. He's not only a young phenom, but I think the best all-around player, if you don't think that Mike Trout is. And that's really the debate right now. Who is the better all-around player? Is it Trout or is it Harper? What's your take on that, Johnny?
My brother played with Mike Trout, and I played with Harper. One thing I will say, and I've seen Trout play. I saw him play against my brother. I saw him play in a lot of perfect game showcases. He's an outstanding player. I don't believe Bryce has really had time to breathe. He's been injury-ridden since he's been in the league. He's had, a lot of small issues. So I'm excited to see this. This year, you finally see him not having an injury, and he's flourishing. He's been flourishing most of the season. He's doing really well. He had that streak where he was hitting home run every other day, it seems. And he's got all 5 tools. He has every tool that you look for in a Major League Baseball player. He has speed. He has power. He can hit the average, hit for power. There's tools that people will look at essentially when they're looking at a showcase for what player. And if you have 4 tools, you might qualify. But if you have 5 tools, you're a very rare breed. And both of them have that. Mike has that too. But I don't know. In terms of just tenacity and raw aggression and desire for the sport and to be number one, I think Bryce is going to be the better player. I do. I've always said that. I think he's just an outstanding. I've seen him do things that I've never seen other people do. I've seen him hit the ball from places, his eyes, from the dirt, hit oppo. I've seen him do things that are just freak of nature type things. And Mike Trout as well, he does them. But my vote's for Bryce. If I had to stake money on, I bet he would have a better career. So we can pull up this recording in 20 years and see.
We'll have to check it out then. You got to see if you're right about Bryce Harper being the better of the two. And I would say, his middle name has to be tenacity. It has to be aggression. That's what his baseball game is all about. He's not only talented and, freakishly athletic, but it's about his mentality as well, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. His attitude is so important in the game. And he might seem like he's making noise when he, says he wants to be the best ever and he wants to, but I do believe it. I see it in his eyes. I've seen it since I've been playing baseball with that young man since he's been 10 years old.
He wants it bad.
There's no other way to put it. And he's always wanted that. So, people think, he just says that and it's willy-nilly, but he really means it. He lives it. The kid sacrificed a whole lot. College experiences, friends, just going out and having fun or doing whatever, kids are doing at his age. He sacrificed all of that because he made a commitment to the league, and I think he's going to do really well.
He wants to succeed, very badly, and I believe you do as well at the Detroit Water Ice Factory, John. And with that, thank you very much for all your time today on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Have a good one, and talk to you soon. And that was indeed Mr. Johnny Keith of the Detroit Water Ice Factory, doing a lot of good stuff over there, Dom, on One Campus Martius on Woodward Avenue in downtown Detroit. That's where you can find it, the Detroit Water Ice Factory, Dominic. And you sounded very intrigued by all the different flavors. You did, Dom.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to try out? I mean, there's a lot of good. It sounds like this is different than ice cream, but obviously it's still a little bit like it, but has its own intricacies, right? And it's kind of like that gelati, which is gelato for us, I guess we call it that, but in New Jersey, they're accustomed to it. And there's so many flavors. They have that Motown twist, as he was saying. Those, number of flavors, too, that are related to Motown with those names that are related to Motown. And that chocolate peanut butter one that he mentioned, that rang up me really quick and made me very hungry. I'm salivating at the mouth already thinking of that one. Because I would love to try that one
Although
out.
I can't have peanut butter, but...
No, Dom's a little bit allergic to that, but I am not. I love peanut butter. Sad but true, I do love to eat it, even in front of Dom, which is all right because he's not allergic that bad. You can back that up.
Not airborne.
It's not airborne. So, good for Dom, good for Johnny Keith there at the Detroit Water Ice Factory. And let's move on now, Dominic, all right? We can do that, right? On the 5th edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co., and let's get into now the Tigers' performance this past weekend against the Rangers in a 4-game set at Comerica Park, where they've been horrible this year, Dom. Miserable at home, and they were kind of last year too. and now big time under 500.
Now they're under 500 at home now. Yeah.
And they shouldn't be, but they are, and they're not a good ball club. But this weekend, I think, spelled the end of the Tigers' season, Dom, when they lost 3 games there of that 4-game set, and they could have won 2 of those 3 and won the series 3 out of 4, and been right in the thick of things in the wild card race for that second wild card spot. And now the Rangers have kind of taken over. They are in the lead for that spot over the Halos by a game and a half, I believe. Halos are 63 and 61, so I believe the Rangers are 4 games over, let's say, right now, with that being said. And they're looking good and better. But the Tigers had their chances. This is what we're talking about here. The Tigers had their chances, multiple, right, and never executed offensively. And that was the problem this weekend and has been their problem all season long. And I think it finally caught up to them to the highest level that it has all this season. And now, as a result, the Tigers have no chance of making it in. And they barely even had a chance, but now their chances aren't even slim to none. They're done after this weekend, Dom.
Yeah, I think.
What's your take?
Well, I think the white flag was waved when they traded David Price. I think at that point they surrendered. They took a back seat. They're ready, and Dombrowski said it. They rebooted. At that point, I think that.
And then Dombrowski was booted.
And Dombrowski was booted.
Didn't get the chance to reboot too much. He was just booted out of town.
Yeah, and at that point, I think Tigers felt that they couldn't. They had to get younger. They weren't going to win anyway with their pitching core, their bullpen, the issues they had there, the starters, inconsistencies from Shane Green and Alfredo Simon. At that point, when they traded Price, that was when the white flag was sailing over Comerica Park.
It was waved a long time ago, you're saying, Dom. But would you say that, this past weekend, the results, poor, unproductive?
By math, but yeah.
Because now they're 5 games back. It's getting later and later into the season. They have no starting pitching outside of JV, who people thought wouldn't even be this good to be the ace of the staff right now. And he is, like we talked about earlier in the podcast. But outside of him, you have Alfredo Simon, who might be a 5th starter. Might be, right? Best case scenario.
You try to be optimistic.
You don't have too many guys.
You try to say nothing's inevitable, but I think...
That's not over, right? But
right.
It seems like it is. It's like this past weekend marked the unofficial end to the Tigers season. And the season was already kind of over, or nearing the end. And now this past weekend clinched it for the Tigers not to make it in.
Put the icing on the...
Yeah. Could have been a 5th straight
cake.
postseason, Dom. Not going to happen, right?
No, it won't happen this year. Too many stronger teams ahead of them. Wild card, you have the Astros pitching, young hitters who have great on-base percentages when Springer comes back, guys like that. They just don't have the firepower to stand with all.
And the rotation, too. Pitching is the difference for all these other Major League Baseball clubs. And that's why, for me, the Halos are where they are right now, and the Tigers, these teams that are below the Rangers now for the wild card, the O's, Halos, Tigers, White Sox, they don't have as strong of starting pitching to match up with the Stros. The consistent starting pitching.
Every which way you look at it, it's not their bench. You don't get consistent bench production. There's always something wrong with your team, with a losing team, with the average, below average team. There's always something wrong. There's always something inconsistent about it. And you can't put that any other way than just being below average.
Matt Deary was saying on 105.1 on his show yesterday afternoon, midday, he hosts his show on 105.1. He was talking about the Tigers and their record, where they stand this past weekend marking the end, unofficial end of the season. And I kind of agree with them there. And I kind of already thought it was over. I think we talked about that before on the podcast, that it was over before this weekend.
It was over probably even before Price was dealt. Yeah.
Probably was. But the writing on the wall now is definitely there. It's sticking. It's not going anywhere. The Tigers are done. And Matt Deary was saying this team, I was going to say, Dom, though, this team, we thought was average. I know I thought it was average. A team below 500 now, which means they're below average, right? But with that being said, I don't think they suck. They're just below average, Dom. And that's the difference, or the thing that Matt Deary was trying to explain, that the Tigers are bad, but they're not horrible. Is that true, in your opinion?
I wouldn't say they're horrible. You have star-studded talent on your team, but there's an imbalance there.
That's what it is, right? Really what it comes down to.
It's not severe, but it could get that way with Tigers stand pat at what they're due. They don't operate the right way. If Al Avila doesn't continue to reboot or rebuild, but they got a lot of money.
It's reboot, Dom, not rebuild, okay? Let's not talk about rebuilding.
Well, they got a lot of money, festered up on guys where they're on the right side of 30, getting older there, a lot of money there, so they can't really add too much. They're somewhat strapped. They have to pay the luxury tax this year. As far as everything, concessions, and that's been up, but you'll see that go down too. So the team's not going to have that much money to spend. They might have to get creative during the winter meetings here. They're not a glamorous team as far as big market, New York, LA, for a free agent for Tigers to lure them here from a team that has more to give, more to offer, more money to give, whether they're winning or not. Yankees, Mets, Angels, Dodgers, teams like that, they're going to have the edge in any free agent, and the Cubs now too with Joe Madden getting innovative.
He's a savior
there.
of that franchise on the north side of Chicago. And now the Tigers with Al Avila, will he continue to spend to make moves to enhance the reboot going forward into 2016 and beyond? Do you think he will make those necessary moves down in the offseason?
Well, I certainly hope so for the Tigers' sake.
I mean, you don't hope so. You're saying that, yeah, about to say because you don't care.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. But yeah, if Al Avila, I think he can do it. I think this can be done. The process can be sped. Tigers need to add more young talent in the pitching category. They might have to sacrifice some hitters along the way. They're young hitters. They might have to trade a guy like Castellanos or something like that to get something back, because you can't. You're pretty much strapped financially going forward. With all the earnings they're going to get, they still owe Prince Fielder and Joe Nathan. They owe about $6 million on both those guys' deals.
Now, how about Dylan Kinsler for starting pitching? Because he's hitting right now. His value is sky high now once again, as he's been killing the ball, hitting above 300. What if they dealt him for a starting pitcher and replaced him with Machado at second base going into next year? What do you think about that possibility?
I like that. That's a very good possibility. I think that that'll be a position of need for a lot of big market teams, a lot of teams that didn't trade their assets during the non-waiver trade deadline, that could open things up during the offseason in the winter, a la the Yankees with Aaron Judge, Luis Severino, which I would think they're untouchable. But you never know. If you add a guy, the Yankees they could use a second baseman to partner along with Sir Didi Gregorius, who's a Knight, by the way.
He's a Knight? Officially?
Yeah, officially a Knight in the Netherlands.
Oh, good insight down there, dropping the knowledge on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co. Always dropping some kind of knowledge, no matter if it's analytical stuff or just that knowledge about somebody from the Netherlands and him being a Knight over there. Dom, thank you.
Sir Didi.
As always, thank you, Dom. But let's talk about the American League MVP now discussion. Now we have the Jays' Josh Donaldson, the Halos' Mike Trout. We talked about Mike Trout with Johnny Keith. Is Trout better than Bryce Harper? Harper might win the MVP in the NL. Trout might win it in the AL. That'd be something. Two young phenoms winning it in their respective leagues. That's not the point of the topic of discussion here today, though. The American League MVP is what we're focusing on. And I think it's right now largely between Trout and Donaldson, Dom. What do you think about that debate right now between those two guys? Who is the better one and more likely guy to win it between those two right now for the American League most valuable player? Could it be Trout repeating as MVP? Or is it Donaldson, this young stud third baseman who can hit for power? And actually, right now, technically, Trout is worth more in terms of WAR, 7.2 wins above replacement, based on Baseball Reference. And this could all change.
Fangraphs WAR,
it's a little bit different
Donaldson's
per site,
higher.
Right? Yeah.
Donaldson's higher. And
what do you respect more, Baseball Reference or Fangraphs? Because ESPN always uses Fangraphs, by the way, for their WAR leaders.
Fangraphs, because they don't take into account weighted runs or non-weighted runs. The Baseball Reference takes into account non-weighted runs. Do you count the amount of hits and the amount of times like you score, like runs? It's more of like a runs. You know what I'm saying? The guy that scores more runs typically has a higher WAR if they're comparable in every other category. That's how they determine it. Fangraphs doesn't do that because really scoring a run doesn't mean as much as driving in a
producing the run, right? And these guys are very comparable too, Donaldson and Trout. But who's the better guy, more likely guy to win the American League MVP in 2015? After we know Trout won it last year, but this year the Halos 63 and 61, a game and a half out of the second wild card spot, trailing the American League West, their division rival Texas Rangers. And then you have the Jays, who are red hot once again, have won 3 in a row, 7 of their last 10, are standing at 69 and 55, tied for first place in the American League East with the New York Yankees, a team that I think they will catapult for the division crown by the end of the season. So with that being said, I have Donaldson winning based on the team's record. And I think it's about success of the team, too, and whether or not the team gets into the playoffs. And I think it was based on that for Cabrera winning a few times when he beat out Trout for the MVP award in his respective seasons of winning it. This year, though, it's Donaldson with the team having the better record than Trout's Halos. And with that being said, I think the Jays, because of that, I think Donaldson gets the MVP this year over Trout. What's your take, though, Dom? And they're very comparable anyways.
I think it'll come down to empirical data as far as
What do you mean by that now? Empirical data. Explain that
like-
for our listeners
just-
and for myself, actually.
just
Not
like
too smart.
observation, through observation and facts and just numbers. Who's better than that? It can be just, to me, it's just black and white. You don't have to make it gray. I think we've seen it before where, guys that haven't been in the playoff race or who've lost out in the playoff race, George Bell and beat out Alan Trammell in the MVP race. But
Yeah,
the Tigers,
87, yeah.
the Tigers surpassed the Blue Jays, and they got that playoff spot.
But it didn't matter in that MVP race because George Bell still won out over
George Bell
Trammell.
still won. And
Yeah.
you look at the National League this year, think about the MVP candidates there. It'll probably come down to the guys with the two best numbers. Paul Goldschmidt for the Diamondbacks, and non-winning, who's the other guy?
Think about it for a second, but we can revert back to that in a little bit if you want to. And then we can focus on the American League MVP, and then we can refocus on what you have, up there in your memory bank there about the NL MVP race. Always something up there lingering in your head, I know. So we'll go back to it in a minute. But for you, Dom, just answer this, though. Trout, Donaldson, who's better off, more likely to win the MVP this year of those two guys?
Well, Donaldson's RBIs and runs scored totals, they're due to the fact that, he's part of what I where I wrote he's best lineup in baseball, with I think they're filled with guys that can mash, capable of getting him on base in front of him, driving him in. Trout has Pujols, but there really isn't much else in the Angels lineup. I mean, I think Trout is having the best year as a slugger. He led off, his MVP that he won. He led off at that point. He really wasn't. Now he's in the 3-hole. Now he's kind of the protector for Pujols. And his winning runs created plus is higher than Donaldson's as well. Now in third place in the AL West, they have about a 29.6% chance of making the playoffs. The Angels, and none of it will be his fault. At this point, I would say Donaldson will get just for the fact that his team is more likely to get to the postseason and the time voting is held. I think Donaldson will win the MVP.
Will it be because of the right reasons, though? Will he win it rightfully so, based on that premise of the Jays getting into the playoffs and the Halos missing out and staying home?
Well, yeah, I mean, here he's driven in 100 RBIs. Trout only has 73. The OPSs are comparable. Trout has a higher OPS, but more home runs. His Fangraphs WAR is higher, which I take into account a little bit more. And the weighted on base average, the guy getting on base in any shape possible, any way possible, they're about 405 to 408. So everything's really close. You can add the defense into it too. Donaldson's improved there at that as a defensive third baseman throughout his transition from being a catcher.
Which people forget about too. I mean, this guy is so good at stud at third base with the glove, and he was a catcher at one point. That's pretty darn impressive.
Oh yeah. He's propelled himself. He's put himself up there with one of the better defensive third basemen in both leagues. So yeah, as far there'll be an argument for Trout. Trout doesn't have too much to work with, and he's been just like the best slugger there is.
Does it hurt him down that he's already won once too? Do you think it does?
I think it does a little bit, but I do think that it'll be really close because people are definitely going to take into account the strength of the Angels as teams. The year he won the MVP, the team was strong. Last year the team had
95 or 97, 65, right?
Yeah.
And they won the American League West.
American League West. This year, they have, like I said, they have a 29.6% chance of making the playoffs. With that being said, it'll be tough not to vote for him because he's done so much, and he's not even been a catalyst. He's done something that he's never done before. He's a slugger now.
All around getting it done. And he has to do so much for this team where the Jays, they have so much in their, stacked in their lineup. Middle of the order, you have Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion, Troy Tulowitzki. You have all those guys who are masters themselves along with Donaldson. So supporting Josh Donaldson in Toronto. With the Halos, you can't say that about Mike Trout. The support that he gets is very limited. It's Albert Pujols, Trout, and then nobody else in that lineup 1 through 9. So based on that premise, Trout should get it. But based on the playoff chances and the fact that the Halos probably won't get to 90 wins, won't even crack that total this year, I think Donaldson gets it with the Jays, who should win the division crown.
Well, what we've seen with the MVP race before, go look no further than 2003, Miguel Tejada for the A's. He won the MVP in part because the team had that winning streak there where they won.
Was it 18 games in a row or 21?
21 games in a row.
Yeah.
21 games in a row. And it was that was buoyed by Miguel Tejada, and that definitely helped him sway the voters in his direction. in 2003.
Speaking of propelling a team to the playoffs or being able to get propelled right to the MVP award, Miguel Cabrera, let's talk about him now a little bit, Dom. And he's won it now already a few times. And Miggy is killing it this year. Once again, coming off of the DL, he's still hitting the baseball. He's among the batting average, average leaders. If he was able to be, if he had enough at-bats to qualify for that award, he would be the top dog, obviously, for the batting average among both leagues. He's been that good this year. Right now, he's hitting .367 after his 2-for-5 performance against the Reds last night. And with that being said, that would lead all of Major League Baseball by, I didn't specify it before, so I'm going to say it right now, by 32 points, Dom. He would lead it by that much, and he would lead the American League by 47 if he had enough at-bats to qualify right now for the batting title in 2015. And he will, though, he's on pace to still accumulate enough at-bats, but he needs more and more, and hopefully he will pick up that total by the end of the season to qualify for the batting title. And if he does, I believe he's going to win it. He's on pace to do so. And you can say that would be so darn impressive from Miggy after being hurt. And that would be 4 out of 5 batting titles for Miggy. 4 in the last 5 years for Miguel Cabrera. And with all that being said, we just discussed the best 2 sluggers, right, in the American League outside of Cabby. And based on metric stats, all that, their teams this year, it's Donaldson and Trout.
I was thinking
based on performances.
Harper and Goldschmidt for the NL MVP.
Harper for the Nats too. He's easily
both
up
those
there.
Teams
among
are
the best.
Both
the best.
those teams, both those guys have been the best players, but their teams haven't been might not even make the playoffs.
The Nats have stumped up, and the
Diamondbacks
have
for sure aren't gonna. They've been better.
They have a record that's equal to the Nats, or just did a debut.
Yeah, and they play.
Ago, right?
They play the Giants 12 more times.
That's something else. That'll be tough then.
So they could, conceivably, it's possible.
That is something down. But the American League, Cabby, Donaldson, Trout, who do you like the most in 2016 for the American League MVP? Because if Cabrera keeps hitting like he is right now, hits above 350, hits 360 something, right now at 367. If he does that once again in 2016 and plays more of a full season, you got to believe that he'll be right up there among the American League MVP favorites once again, as he was last season, the year before, and in previous stints, or previous campaigns with the Tigers. Yeah. So those 3 guys, Dom, I mean, who would be the one guy that you would say is the automatic favorite of those 3, and the guy that you would want the most just for 2016? But just looking at it in terms of for one season, for 2016, who would you want of those 3 guys? Donaldson, Trout, or Cabrera in 2016? That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very tough.
One to think about.
As far as the MVP goes for next year, it's hard because there's always a guy that comes in and kind of shines, kind of either a young guy, young, highly touted guy that's been very consistent so far in his brief career, or always been a consistent guy that can, be part of the conversation as far as next year. So that's tough to call. I mean, that you have guys like this year who have been a little bit below MVP caliber, but you could conceivably see it going forward in the upcoming years. Guys like Lorenzo Cain in the American League, Jason Kipnis, Jose Altuve, guys like that, you can see who's won a batting title, by the way. Guys like that, they can always be in the conversation. Young, highly touted guys that have been consistent throughout their careers going forward now. Maybe a brief, a couple lulls in their first 2 or 3 seasons. Another guy like Jose Abreu, who's having has a slight sophomore slump. Not too bad, because he's still, I think he's about 4th in among AL first basemen in OPS. But back to Cabrera, Trout, and Donaldson. Now that's a really tough question. I think going
3 studs, and those 2 guys, minus Cabrera, are young guys. They're younger than Cabby.
On my team, I'd rather have. It's really tough. I probably would
because remember, I'm talking about for one season only. I know going forward you want Trout or you want Donaldson, but just for 2016 specifically, you have Cabby in his prime still, hitting above 350, hitting 360 something, let's say next year, or Trout or Donaldson, who are both more the all-around packages. I know with their defensive, abilities at their respective positions.
Yeah, I would have to go with Miguel for another year.
Thank you, Dom.
For one more year, I think you have to go with Miguel. It's the best. He's still the best pure hitter that we have in the majors. Just do it all. The guy is something else. He is something else. He spreads the ball the whole field. Spray chart is just amazing. If you look at his spray chart, he can get the hit. He can take a single, get a hit. He just plays with pitchers, kind of gets in their heads. He's very deceptive. He's a guy that I've seen. He's done it to guys like Chris Sale. He's done it to guys where he's got into their heads. What he'll do is he'll act like a dummy out there, and he'll swing badly at a pitch that he sees perfectly, sets him up for later in the game or later pitch in the pitch sequence, and he'll hit that same pitch. Corey Kluber, too, he'll hit the same pitch out of the ballpark to right field, left field. He just toys with pitchers.
According to Jason Beck, Dominic, of MajorLeagueBaseball.com, and for you, John Macaroon, and our listeners as well, we have to look at this stat, too. He told us in this recent article dating back to last night that Cabrera has 380 plate appearances, which means he's 5 off the pace. 502, right? 502, we said it at the same time because we both know, look at us, Dom. We're right on the same thought line or thought process here. 502 plate appearances is what he needs to qualify for the batting title at the end of the season. He's at 385 off the pace, according to Jason Beck of MLB.com. So he's going to get there, it sounds like, if he keeps playing.
Yes, if he's playing, yeah.
So you think he will then, Dom? I mean, to sum it up, your opinion is that he will
I think he'll
claim
get there, yeah.
the batting title for the fourth year.
Barring any
and 5.
Barring any setbacks, he'll get there.
And that'll be 4 and 5 years where Cabby has won the batting title in the American League. And he's way up. He's way up on the NL batting leaders right now, too. That's how good he's been, and he's been hurt. And coming off the DL, he's been even better, you could say, after he's, since he's returned from the DL.
4 and 5 years.
4 and 5 years.
Title.
Best Tiger of all time? Maybe. Maybe better than Hank Greenberg. Maybe better than Ty Cobb. Better than Al Kaline, Alan Trammell. He might be the best Tiger slugger. Let's just say Tiger slugger, too. But I think all-around player of all time for the Tigers in their franchise history. That might be the case, and he's one of the main, if not the biggest reason why next year they still have a chance to win it all. Dom?
Right.
That can be said, right?
Right.
Dominic, thank you so much. You're wearing Adidas gear. I love that because I work at Top Cat Sales. Go check them out, Top Cat Sales. Dom, thank you very much for all your insight, all your knowledge on today's 5th edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco & Co. To John Macaroon, as usual, as well, helping us out with the production side of things here at the podcast. And to Detroit Sports Nation for hosting us and the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you to all of you guys as well for all your support throughout the year, throughout these 5 episodes of Tigers Talk with Chirco & Co. too. Have a good one, everybody, and talk to you next week on the 6th edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco & Co. Goodbye.